We are back and it's the official predictions for the Football League. Sophie, today we've got the basement level of the Football League. It's our official League 2 predictions.
Do you know what? I actually find the lower leagues harder to predict. I think leagues like the Premier League, you pretty much know what's going to happen, but League 1 and League 2, very hard to predict.
Very difficult league to predict. Do be sure to share your predictions down below. If you are a League 2 fan or not, still please be sure to support this video. Let's go for 1,000 likes. Take 2 seconds to click the thumbs up button, it really helps us, and 2/3 of the viewers are not subscribed. And if you want to help us hit 70,000 subscribers this week, then please make sure to hit the subscribe button. And fasten your seatbelt, Sophie, because here come our League 2 predictions. Let's go through it alphabetically. And we start with Accrington Stanley. Who are they? John Doolan is the manager. He's been there since March of this year. They've brought in Michael Kelly and Jimmy Knowles, but they have lost their top goal scorer. So I'm going to go for a slight decline from Accrington Stanley, and I'm going to go for them to finish in 21st place after losing Jack Nolan. What says you, Sophie?
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a big miss as well. So it'll be interesting to see how they can replace him. I've got them to finish 18th. So slightly higher than you, but I don't think it's going to be a great season. Again, it depends on who they've got coming in. If they can get a good replacement, then I think they will finish higher. But right now, I'm saying 18th.
On to the next team then, Sophie, and we have AFC Wimbledon. I quite like AFC Wimbledon. Last season, they finished in 10th place. They just fell short of the playoffs. They've got Johnny Jackson as the manager. I quite like him. I'm not sure about you. In through the door comes John Joe O'Toole, Matty Stevens, Lewis Ward, and Callum Maycock, a player we're familiar with from Coventry City. I'm going to go with a slight improvement from Wimbledon. I'd love to see them make the playoffs, proper football club, but I'm going to have them in 9th place this time round.
Yeah, I've got them to finish quite similar to last season. In fact, I've got them dropping 1 place just because I think it might be a slightly more difficult league. I've got them to finish 11th.
Ooh.
So yeah, roughly the same as last season for me.
There you go. Share your thoughts on AFC Wimbledon. Next up, Sophie, we have Barrow. Barrow were just outside the playoffs last season. This time round, though, I do think they might be a bit further down the division. Now, they've got Stephen Clements as the manager. He's new to the job, but they have lost quite a few key players. They've lost players such as Ben Whitfield, James Chester and George Ray. There has been a couple of decent additions with the likes of Theo Vassell and Connor Mahoney, but I'm going to go with 16th place for Barrow this time round.
Yeah, I've got them dropping a fair bit. I think last season they did have a good season. Sometimes when you don't quite make the playoffs, you can have a fall off next season. As you've mentioned, a couple of players out the door, key players. So for me, I've got them to finish 20th.
Ooh.
So they will survive, but not a good season.
No, that's not very good. Okay, next up, Sophie, we have Bradford City. I always feel like we expect Bradford to do quite well and they never quite deliver. They're a massive club for this level, Sophie. Can they get into the top 7 or even the top 3? Now, they have an experienced manager in Graham Alexander, and they have one of the better budgets in this league and a massive fan base to come with it. In terms of players you need to watch out for, I'm a massive fan of Andy Cook. He scores goals. You've got Jamie Walker as well. And the players they've brought in as well, they've brought in Neil Byrne, Callum Johnson and Anthony Sarcevic has re-signed. I'm going to go for a 7th place finish as Bradford City get back into the playoffs.
Yeah, we've gone quite similar. I've also got them in the playoffs. I've got them 1 position higher, 6th.
Ooh.
So I think they'll have a good season. I often predict that for Bradford. Sometimes they disappoint me or sometimes they don't quite make it. But I think they are going to make the playoffs again. Big club, and it would be nice to see them go up.
Absolutely. Can Bradford make the playoffs this time round? They just fell short last season. On to the next team, Sophie. This is brilliant. It's Bromley, who came up through the National League playoffs. They're going to be in the Football League for their first ever time. Can they make a good impression? Now, there is some interesting stats that come with teams that have been promoted from the National League. Not very often, I don't think for a long time, we've seen teams that have come up from the Football League go straight back down. Remember, only 2 teams go down, and their business has been okay. They've brought in a few players that are experienced to the Football League. Omar Sawunmi from Sutton, they've brought in Sam Long from Lincoln and Taylor Foran from Arsenal. Andy Woodman is a good manager. I'm going to back them to just stay up. 22nd place for Bromley.
I think I'm going to wind up some Bromley fans here. I'm feeling a little bit negative, you know.
Ooh.
I've got them to finish rock bottom.
Oh no!
24th, yeah. I don't think it's going to be a disastrous season in regards to points. Obviously it is in regards to relegation, but I think there'll be a few games where they'll be in it, but overall I don't think they're going to have the quality to stay up.
It's a big jump up. It is a big jump up. Yeah. On to the next team, Sophie. Let's go on to Carlisle United. They finished rock bottom of the League One table last season, but the main thing is, coming into this season, they've stuck with Paul Simpson, and I think that's a good thing.
Yes.
I think it gives them a good chance of coming back up, because it was him who brought them up a season before last. Now, they've got a couple of decent players still there in the likes of Luke Armstrong, Callum Guy, but some of the transfer activity is making me think Carlisle United might get into the top 3 this season. I'm going to go for 3rd place. They've signed Aaron Hayden, Ethan Robson and Charlie White, so I am very impressed. I reckon Carlisle get automatics.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've actually got them to finish 2nd, so I think they'll have a good season. Last season obviously was very poor. They didn't have the quality for League One, but they've shown before that they've got the quality for League Two, and with those additions I think they'll be just fine.
There you go. Both go for Carlisle United to get automatic promotion. On to the next team, Sophie. It's Cheltenham Town, who also got relegated last season in 21st place. Now, they've brought in a new manager in Michael Flynn, and it does feel like they need a big rebuild. Now, they've brought in Harry Pell, Scott Bennett, Luke Young, and they've brought in Ryan Haynes, former Coventry player. I just feel a little bit like unsure about Cheltenham. I feel like they've got a good chance of being up there, but I think it's a competitive league this year, and I might go for them to have a season of building with the new manager. Mid-table for me, 13th place.
Yeah, I've got them slightly higher. I've got them to finish 10th. I don't think they're going to walk away with this league at all. I think there may be games where they'll struggle, and that's why I've got them to finish around mid-table, but slightly higher up. They could well be in with a playoff shout for me. I'm not going to completely rule them out of that right now, but for me, slightly higher than you, but not the best season.
There you go. Yeah, both around mid-table. On to the next one, Sophie. We have Chesterfield. They, of course, won the National League last season, as we expected them to do. Now, they're back in the Football League, and Paul Cook is the manager. He's an experienced gaffer in the Football League. He's managed many clubs, Portsmouth, Wigan Athletic. And I look at this team, Sophie, and I think, it's strong to go already. We've already seen the likes of Stockport and Wrexham pushing on after promotions from the National League. I expect Notts County might this season. And I'm going to go for a bold shout here. It's the bookies' tip, Chesterfield to win the league. Like I say, they've got Will Grigg, they've brought in Che Dunkley, Kane Drummond, Lewis Gordon and Paddy Madden. I'm having them to go up.
Yeah, I think they'll go up, but not in 1st place for me. I've got them to finish 3rd just because I think there are a couple teams slightly stronger. I've not given my 1st place yet, but obviously I've mentioned Carlisle in 2nd. But I think they're going to have a good season. You look at that squad and you think they've got the quality there. As long as it all gels well, and I think under the manager it will, they'll go up.
There you go. Next up, Sophie, we go on to Colchester United. Now, they just about scraped over the line last season in 22nd place with 45 points. Now, they've got the Cowleys as the managers, and they came in January, and credit to them, they kept Colchester up. But when they just survived at the end of last season, I was thinking, I feel a bit worried for them coming into the new season, but their business hasn't been too bad. They've brought in quite a few decent players in Rob Hunt, Lyle Taylor, Jack Payne, Matt Macy and Harry Anderson, and with that I'm going for an improvement. 18th place for Colchester for me.
See, I've actually got them going down.
Oh!
I know they've added a few good players, but sometimes when it's not been going well at a club for a little while, you think they'll go down at some point. I could well be very wrong on this one, so I'll hold my hands up at the end of the season if I get it wrong, but right now I think they might go down.
Oh!
Yeah, 23rd.
23rd place for Colchester. Share your thoughts if you are a Colchester United fan. On to the next team, Sophie, and we come on to Crewe Alexandra. Now, they just missed out on promotion last season after finishing in 6th place with 71 points. They lost to Crawley Town in the playoff final. Now, they've got Lee Bell as the manager. He did a good job last season guiding them to the playoffs. Can he do the same thing again? I think it'd be difficult. It might take a season for them to rebuild the squad a bit. You look at some of those players that have gone out, Rio Adebisi, Elliot Nevitt, they were quite crucial to their team last season. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, they've brought in a couple of decent players in the likes of Omar Bogle, Kane Hemmings and Jack Lancaster. I'm going to have the mid-table, Sophie, in 12th place.
Yeah, I've got them slightly lower. I know they'll be a bit like, you've got us to finish 15th after last season, but I think it is going to be a rebuilding season for them. I don't think that's completely disastrous, because obviously relegation would be, but yeah, compared to last season, nowhere near as good. So it'd be interesting to see how they can gel again, but for me right now, 15th.
15th place, there you go. On to the next one, Sophie, and we come on to Doncaster Rovers. Now, they were in some incredible form last season. They also finished in the playoff places after finishing in 5th place. Now, I feel quite optimistic for them, Sophie. Yes, they didn't go up last year. They fell short when they lost to Crewe in the playoff semis. But I reckon they're going to go all guns blazing for automatic promotion, and they're going to get it. 2nd place for me, they've got Grant McCann as the manager. I do really like him, and the activity has been pretty good. I think this squad is more than good enough to get automatic promotion. They've got Joe Ironside, Ben Close, and now they've brought in Ephraim Yeboah, Ted Sharman Lowe, Billy Sharp as well. Automatic promotion for me.
Yeah, I think just one man there, you think he's going to score goals in League Two, and that's Billy Sharp. I think he's going to send them into top spot for me.
Oh!
Yeah, I've got Doncaster to finish top. I think they'll have a good season, go straight up. I think it'll be quite convincing as well.
There you go. Both go for Doncaster to get automatic promotion. If you're a Donny fan, do be sure to share your thoughts. On to the next team then, Sophie, and we have Fleetwood Town, who have just come down from League One. Now, it's a difficult one. They are tipped to do fairly well, but I thought they were quite poor last season. Yeah. They've got Charlie Adam as the manager. Now, he came in on New Year's Eve, I believe, last season, and he couldn't keep them up. Look, they're going to go out and spend a little bit of money. I feel like they'll be competitive in this division, and I think they'll be in the top half, but I'm going to go in 11th place for Fleetwood Town. They've lost Jaden Stockley and Kane Hayes. They have brought in Elliot Bonds, Matty Virtue and James Bolton. I think mid-table, maybe a season of building.
Yeah, I agree. A season of building for me. And again, I've gone slightly lower than you. I've got Fleetwood to finish 16th. Which, yeah, it'd be a pretty poor season, but rebuilding, maybe completely focus on the season after and pushing for automatics, playoff place minimum. But right now, I don't think it's going to be the best season. I mean, it could completely change. Summer transfer window is still open, a couple more additions, and I might change my mind, but right now 16th.
16th place. Okay, on to the next one, Sophie. We have one of the teams that are tipped to do fairly well, and that is Gillingham. Now, they finished in 12th place last season. Mike Bonner is the manager. He is new, of course. I think one of the reservations I have when it comes to Gillingham is they didn't score enough goals. They only scored 46 goals last year. You know, that's a goal a game. It's not quite enough to get you up and around the promotion places. Their defence was fairly tidy, and I do think they will improve. I'm going to have them in 8th place, just on the edges of the playoffs, Sophie. Their business, not bad. They've brought in Elliot Nevitt, Jack Nolan and Aaron Lowe. I think they'll be pushing for the playoffs. Yeah,
I've literally got them the same as you. I've got them to finish 8th as well. I'm in agreement with you. I think they'll just fall short of the playoffs, but if they can get that goal scoring sorted, I think they could finish in the playoffs. But yeah, right now I'm in agreement with you. 8th place.
Maybe the goals will come with Elliot Nevitt. You never know. On to the next one, Sophie. It's Grimsby Town. They finished in 21st place last season. David Artell is the manager, and you feel like there's a bit of pressure on him to start pushing this club up the Football League. Now, they've brought in Jordan Wright, Matthew Carson, Lewis Cass and James McJanet. I think that's decent business from Grimsby, and it makes me think there will be a subtle improvement. I think it's going to be very competitive down the bottom of this table, but they're more than good enough to finish a bit higher than last season. I'll be reserved and say 19th for now.
See, I'm actually not going to be reserved. I think they'll have a better season. Depends if they can click very early on in the season. If they can, I think they could have an alright season. I'm not going anything daft, but I'm going to have them to finish 14th.
Okay,
which,
well,
yeah, mid-table wouldn't be a bad finish. So.
Yeah, that is some improvement, to be fair, for Grimsby Town. On to the next one, Sophie. We have Harrogate Town. Now, they finished mid-table last season. They've got the longest-serving manager in Simon Weaver, who's been there for 15 years. Can you believe that? That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, out the door goes Rod McDonald and Abraham Odo, and this is going to be my shock pick, Sophie. They're going down. 23rd place for Harrogate Town. Yes, they've brought in Ellis Taylor and Duke McKenna, but I just have a feeling they might drop. What say you?
I'm going to have them to just stay up. I've got them to finish 21st, so they are just staying up for me, but compared to last season, it's not a good one.
Interested in that. Okay, on to the next team, Sophie. We have MK Dons. Now, last season, Mike Williamson took them to the playoffs in 4th place, and this time round, they'll be hoping to go one better. They were smashed to pieces by Crawley Town across those playoff games. Was it 8-1 on aggregate? Not very good.
Yeah.
I have a feeling it could be more of the same. I don't think they'll move down the table. They'll either get into that top 3, or I'm going to go for them to finish in 4th place. Same as last season, which would be painful to just miss out on the top 3. They have got Jonathan Lako, Joe Tomlinson, Dean Lewington still there, of course, and they've brought in Callum Hendry and Tommy Lee. They have lost Max Dean, though, to Ghent, and he was their top scorer last season. I'm going to have them in 4th place.
Yeah, I've got them to finish 4th as well. I think it could be a similar tale to last season. Wouldn't be surprised if they spend a month or 2 in the top 3 and then just fall out, which would be heartbreaking, because then you've got to go through the playoffs again. But I do think it'll be a playoff finish. Okay,
there you go. Both going for MK Dons in that top region of the table. Next up, it is Morecambe, Sophie. And yeah, they might have finished mid-table last season. They might have brought in a new manager in Derek Adams, but I'm still quite concerned for this football club. I'm going to go for Morecambe in 24th place. Now, it's not been a pretty picture off the pitch for a few weeks. The transfer embargo did get lifted, so they are able to bring players in. They brought in over 15 players now, but I'm just not sure about Morecambe. I just don't think it's a settled picture. They're going to give themselves far too much work to do to try and prepare for this season now. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to have them to finish 24th, Sophie. What about you?
Yeah, so I wouldn't be surprised if they went down. I don't think many other people would be surprised if they went down. However, my maybe shocker will be to have them to just stay up. Okay. I don't know how they'll do it. They're going to have to fight really hard, gel quickly. But yeah, somehow I think they're just going to stay up. So for me, I've got them to finish 22nd.
22nd?
So yeah, by the skin of their teeth.
Wow, there you go. You're going for Morecambe to stay up. On to the next one, Sophie. It's Newport County. They finished in 18th place last season, and they've brought in a new manager in Nelson Yardin, the Portuguese manager. Now, they weren't very good last season, if I'm going to be brutally honest. The only thing I could take away from it was their decent little FA Cup run, and they gave Manchester United a decent game, didn't they? They came back from 2-0 down in that game. I just think it could be more of the same from Newport. It's a new manager, so maybe they might go in a new direction. As for the transfer activity, we've seen Matt Baker, Oliver Greaves and Courtney Baker Richardson come through the door. If the end of last season is anything to go by, it could be a difficult season though. They lost their last 8 games in a row, so I'm going to go for a 20th place finish for Newport County. What about you?
Yeah, I've got them to finish slightly higher than that because I do think they've got some quality in their players there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how the manager gets on, because obviously we don't know a great deal about him right now. So I'm going fairly safe. I'm going to say a 17th place finish.
Slight improvement.
Yeah, slight improvement. I just don't know what to expect right now.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, on to the next one, Soph. One of the best teams to watch in League 2 last season was no doubt Notts County. An incredibly exciting team. They scored loads of goals, they conceded loads of goals, and if they can just sort out those defensive issues, they could be quite good this season. We must address, though, that they have lost Langstaff to Millwall. He's been such a key goal scorer there, but they've still got some very exciting players in Jody Jones, Crowley, David McGoldrick, and they've brought in a couple of players in Rod McDonald, Kellen Gordon and Alex Bass. I'm going to go with Stuart Maynard to take Notts County to 5th place.
Yep, I'm in agreement again. I've got them to finish 5th. I could have them to finish slightly lower, depends if they can get a guy that can score as many goals as Langstaff. I don't think that's going to be possible, but if a few other players can chip in, they get a really decent striker that will provide enough goals, then I think they will finish 5th. But actually, I could see them finishing slightly lower, just depends right now. So I'm feeling optimistic. I think they will get someone in. I think other players will chip in with goals and they could have a decent season. So playoffs for me.
Yeah, and I'd like to see Notts County get in there. On to the next team, Sophie. We've got Port Vale. This is another old school proper football club. Last season, of course, they were relegated in 23rd place. Now the pressure is certainly going to be on Darren Moore. They have brought in Ronan Curtis, Jaden Stockley and Ben Amos, which I think is decent business. They've got to make sure they at least get a playoff place. I was there a few years ago when they got to the playoffs and beat Mansfield in that playoff final. Can they repeat the trick by getting back to Wembley and getting promoted? Well, I'm going to have them in my playoffs. 6th place for Port Vale, Sophie, which would mean Notts County versus Port Vale in a playoff semi. That'd be great.
Yeah, I think for me the key things with Port Vale is if they can keep hold of their goal scorers, Ethan Chislett and Ben Garrity, I think they could finish in the playoffs again.
Yeah.
I've got them to finish in 7th place, so not top end of the playoffs, but I think they could just do it.
Yeah, it's playoffs nonetheless, and that would see them facing MK Dons in your prediction.
Okay.
On to the next one, Sophie. It's Salford City. Now, it's a difficult one with Salford. They were very underwhelming last year. They finished in 20th place. They've got Carl Robinson as the manager, and they've been busy in the window with Jamie Jones, Tom Edwards, John Taylor, Cole Stockton and James Chester all coming through the door. They've got money to spend.
They are.
They've got to improve on last season. It's going to be a bit of gelling, though, with all those faces coming through the door, so I might have them to improve, but no higher than mid-table for me. I'm going to go in 14th place.
Okay, so I've got them to finish slightly higher. I actually have them to finish 9th. I think some of the players, as long as they can gel quite quickly, I think they'll have that quality for a better finish. I think if they don't really, it will be seen as like a little bit of a failure, considering how many players they have brought in, like decent players as well. So I'd like to see them finish high end of the table, and I think they might just do it. So 9th.
9th place. Okay, on to the next team, Sophie, and it's Swindon Town. This is a big club for this level, but last season they were underwhelming. They finished in 19th place. Now, they've brought in a new manager in Mark Kennedy, and last season their top goal scorers were Jake Young and Dan Kemp, but they were both on loan, so it is about replacing those players if they want to push on, because there's a real risk if they don't get better, they get worse and they get sucked down the table, and they were only a few places above the bottom two. I don't think that'll happen. I'm going to be optimistic for Swindon and say they'll improve a couple places, but really, as a club, they should be doing better than this. I'm going to go in 17th place for Swindon Town.
Okay.
They've brought in Ollie Clark and Ryan Delaney. Let's see if those players can make an impact.
Yeah, so I'm going to have them to finish around mid-table, so slightly higher than you. I've got them to finish 13th. Yeah, I'm not really too sure what to expect. I am thinking they could have a good season, but equally I wouldn't be surprised if they were further down, as you predicted. But for me right now, I'm going to say around mid-table.
Mid-table. Okay, only 2 teams left, Sophie. On to the next one. We have Tranmere Rovers. They finished in 16th place last season. They've got the experienced Nigel Adkins as the manager. They've brought in Josh Davison, Sol Solomon, Sam Finley and Cameron Norman. Decent bit of business there for Tranmere. Really decent club that I'd like to see get back to League One. And Nigel Adkins is a decent manager. Let's not forget what he did with Southampton over 10 years ago now. I'm going to go with Tranmere to improve 1 place. I think it's going to be very difficult in this middle region. I could see them improving quite a lot more than this, but I'll go with 15th for now.
Yeah, so I feel a little bit harsh on Tranmere, but I've got them to drop down to 19th place.
Ooh.
I could be wrong on this one, and I've kind of put them where I think worst case scenario, that's where I think that'll end up. But as I say, I think they could well finish higher, especially if they add a few more players, and I do think he's a decent manager, so we'll see. So right now, sorry Tranmere fans, but I've got you to finish 19th.
Okay, on to the final team then, Sophie, and it's Walsall. I'm going to have them in 10th place, which is a 1 place improvement on last season. They've got Matt Sadler as the manager. They have lost Isaac Hutchinson. Jackson Smith has gone out the door, but they've re-signed Josh Gordon. They've brought in Charlie Lakin and Connor Barrett, and I have a feeling that Walsall could be sniffing around the playoffs this time round. Decent club. I'd like to see them get back to League One. I'll have them improving by 1 place.
So I've got them dropping by 1 place. I've got Walsall to finish 12th. As I said earlier, I think this could be quite a difficult league. So I don't know. I don't think that'd be a great season for Walsall, because they're getting a little bit too comfortable in League 2 right now, where you think, okay, in my eyes, should be round about League 1, the top end of League 2. But right now, it's almost like they're a mid-table League 2 team. Could well finish in the playoffs, just outside the playoffs, but right now, I'm going to say about 12th.
Okay, there you go. We're both going for Walsall to be in the top half. And that wraps up our League 2 predictions, guys. Do be sure to share your predictions down in the comments. Like I say, it's predictions. Don't come at us saying you know what's going to happen. Anything could happen. Share your predictions down in the comments. We won't have a go at you, so don't have a go at us. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want more League 2 content. And we will see you in the next video. Take care. Peace out.